My husband has been acting strange around water. It started innocently enough. He was showering and asked me to bring him a towel. When I returned, he was making a strange gargling sound. I threw back the curtain to reveal my husband, face up, letting the water fill his mouth, spilling from between his lips. I thought he was just being immature, but he ignored me when I called his name. His eyes seemed foggy and distant. Took him a few minutes to snap out of it. He laughed about it, but I was a little worried. I could tell he was too. We considered narcolepsy or perhaps fatigue. A new condo development nearby was making his job as a wetland biologist particularly difficult. The local species, many of them endangered, were suffering intense stress. We assumed he was as well. We took a vacation to unwind. 3 days of much-needed isolation in the Outer Banks. Everything went well at first, but I caught that same hollow expression more than once as he gazed out over the ocean. He wouldn't even remember doing it, and began getting angry when he was pulled from his reverie. On our last night there, I awoke to an empty bed. I frantically ran down to the beach and caught him attempting to walk into the sea. This was getting out of hand. He screamed at me when I dragged him from the water, seemingly desperate to walk past the breakers. His doctor was as perplexed as we were. Outwardly, there was nothing wrong with him, but this fixation, whatever it was getting worse. He couldn't work. He couldn't even hold a glass of water without fading into a blank facade of fascination. Almost longing. I was about to recommend a psychiatric evaluation when he disappeared. I'd left him alone for the first time in weeks, to have lunch with my mother. When I returned home, he was gone. His car was still in the driveway. There were no signs of a break-in. He'd simply vanished into thin air, without even a note. I waited breathlessly by the phone for days as search parties combed the surrounding woods. They searched the rivers and the swamps, but there was no sign of him anywhere. I'd almost given up hope when a friend called, frantically explaining that something had been found in the old flooded quarry. I knew the place well. The drive there was a blur. I arrived just as they pulled him from the water. He was dead, drowned. His body was putrid, swollen, and mottled. But it was still my husband, whom I'd failed. I wept over him, the police and first responders keeping a wide berth. I wondered to myself how this could happen. When the first writhing black mass squirmed from between his teeth, I understood. Within weeks, nearly 20 million people had followed him into the water. His name was Michael. He was 33 years old, and he was patient zero for the global outbreak of horsehair worms.